My name is Chad Whitacre, and I guess you might call me a reluctant prophet.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you? How's your day going?
Pretty good.
My message is for everyone, starting with all of you software developers out there that use and love and create and participate in open source.
Have you ever heard of something called open source software?
No. That is so interesting. What is that?
I know.
If you do.
You ever hear the beerware license?
No.
Did you know that there are software components on your phone that Apple is using under the beerware license?
What is that?
Think about Wikipedia. The 1% of us or whatever that like pay for Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Like
Internet Archive,
Yes.
very similar.
Model.
Like, has to exist.
Yeah.
Absolutely crucial, very low in the stack, but like,
Yeah.
who gives
Who's
money
paying for it?
that?
Yeah.
Open source is a gift that's greater than we realize. Fully accepting it could heal the world.
So you know about open source software?
Yeah, a little.
A little.
A little bit.
Do you use open source software? What do you know about open source software? Besides
it's
the word
future.
open source, it's the future.
FOSS is the future.
The open source movement started in 1998, building on the legacy of the free software movement going back to 1983. I first got involved in 2001, making websites in Python. Ruby on Rails came out in 2004. Django came out in 2005. I published Aspen in 2006.
Aspen is the way of working online. And if you have any questions, just ask Chad Whitacre.
Greetings, program. Chad Whitacre here.
I loved the open source community. I flew to conferences. I ran local meetups. It was wonderful working together with friends, welcoming everyone, sharing freely. When the Occupy movement came around in 2011, it seemed to have similar ideals on a wider scale, so I checked it out. I did feel a spark of genuine community in the Occupy Pittsburgh camp. But the mentality of us versus them activism drowned it out, and Occupy faded away. I was beginning to sense that open source is about more than just technology. I was also facing up to the fact that volunteering on open source didn't pay the bills. But what if it could? After all, more and more successful companies were depending on the software created by open source volunteers. What if they paid us for it? In 2012, I founded a crowdfunding platform called GitTip, or GitIp, and later renamed GratiPay. In my mind, GitTip was a gift economy where forward-thinking companies freely reciprocated with money for the gift of open source software. It was a new economic relation between individuals and corporations, a taste of a world in which we feel less alienated from each other and more empowered in the institutions that govern our lives. But GitTip was not the only game in town. The first post about Patreon on Hacker News called it a GitTip-like platform to empower artists and content creators.
I'm looking at Twitter here, and we've got a backlog of questions now.
There's also, I found the comments page on the YouTube video. You just have to click see comments. So we're getting a lot of comments too there.
I'm gonna have to find that. Are earning numbers public on Patreon?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, do we want to get into some of the squirrely ones? Do any of you have things you don't like about the models of the others? Be honest, no hurt feelings.
Oh.
I feel we need some beer before we're gonna go there. I mean, I'm happy to. Okay, question for Wit537. When Jack Conte said he's making $5K a month, how did you feel? It's the micro-celebrity thing, right? Like, I'm not a YouTuber. That's not my thing. I don't know. I don't edit videos. I just, do this. I like... Dude, jealous. It made me feel jealous. That's how it made me feel.
I'm sorry.
But happy at the same time, I think that's awesome.
Turns out, YouTubers are better at marketing than programmers. Turns out, online community is a delicate thing. Turns out, financial regulators are not familiar with gift economies. After moving more than $1 million from dozens of companies to hundreds of maintainers, GitTip died a painful death in 2015. I tried for 2.5 years to revive it. I finally burned out and let go in 2017. In 2020, I joined Sentry as a software engineer on the open source team. Over time, I became the face of open source internally at Sentry. Sentry's founder, David Kramer, asked me to distribute funds to the maintainers of Sentry's open source dependencies. Sentry had been an early adopter of GitTip. Now I had another chance to change the status quo, this time with a bigger budget, a ubiquitous XKCD comic, and a lot of scars. Our funding program went over so well that Kramer promoted me to head of open source. I ran it again the next year, and again the year after that. People started to notice.
My guest today, Chad Whitacre, head of open source at Sentry.
I'm not going to talk over this guest because this guest is amazing. Chad Whitacre.
Chad Whitacre from Sentry.
Chad Whitacre, thank you so much for coming on the Contagious Code podcast. I'm so excited to talk to you today about open source, making it sustainable, and your commitment to open source.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Tejas.
What we were doing at Sentry was great, but it wasn't enough by itself. We needed to join forces with other companies. Kramer and I decided I would focus exclusively on spreading the message externally. I started with a blog.
Chad Whitacre wrote an article about the rug pull and relicensing as a whole here.
To really get the message out, I knew I needed to make videos, but I was terrified to re-enter the limelight after the painful failure of GitTip. I procrastinated by going way overboard building out a studio. I spent 4 months and literally overdrew my bank account. But with the launch of the open source pledge, I couldn't put it off any longer. Hi friends, my name is Chad Whitacre and I'm head of open source at Sentry. And today, with over 20 other partner companies, we're launching the open source pledge. What day is it? October 8th. What is the open source pledge? The open source pledge is a group of companies working together to change the status quo in open source sustainability. The pledge got off to a great start. Within 6 months, we had 32 companies on board, representing $2.5 million paid to open source maintainers over the past year. But for the pledge to succeed, we would need to get a lot more people on board with the vision. Meanwhile, Sentry had bought a podcast called Syntax, and they wanted to branch out into multiple shows. On paper, the timing was perfect. I charged ahead recording podcast interviews and joined the Syntax team inside Sentry to launch my own show. I was dying on the inside.
Joining me today is Dieter Platink, a distinguished engineer.
Sorry, I have to interrupt you. I'm not a distinguished engineer. I wasn't.
Principal
My last
engineer.
title was principal engineer.
Principal engineer.
Never made it to
I love
distinguished.
it. I'll let you introduce yourself.
It didn't help that it's actually a lot of work to run a good podcast.
I'm going to add an intro, like a separately recorded intro to this. So, Scott Chacon, welcome to the podcast. Okay.
Thanks for having me.
Man, you know when you like try to do something and it's like you're not quite there and you're not quite there?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. That's kind of where I'm at. Give me a half a second.
Maybe I could have improved, but my heart wasn't in it. I love people, I love a good conversation, but even if I could get over my hang-ups from GitTip, I'm not a big podcast listener. They say you should create the content you want to watch, but I hardly watch anything. If I was going to launch a show, that would need to change.
This young faggot has trouble.
Sophomore year, I was just carefree.
Yo, is this true? Is this for real?
Yeah.
Do you think anybody that comes to see me is coming for any other reason except entertainment, really?
Syntax asked me to launch my show by the end of April. I really wanted it to be more than a podcast, but what? In desperation, I read Save the Cat Rights for TV. Then I called the author.
The big thing, if you read my book, I always say TV's wonky, but what you're doing is even wonkier. Usually in a TV show, the first episode is somebody's presented with a job, and the whole episode is about, can I do this job? And in the end of the first episode, it's like, yeah, I guess I can. And what I like that you're saying, because I think this is really important, is all these different kind of formats and almost impromptu videos as part of your, like, I'm walking in the woods one day. Too much talking head will get old really quick, or it'll feel like a podcast. And honestly, I'm not convinced from what you tell me right now that your show is a story show necessarily. But the one thing you do have on your behalf is the educational content, because that has its own draw. And then last but not least, whether you like it or not, the more authentic and vulnerable you are, that's also interesting.
Well, that's what's been so terrifying over the past year. I did that startup 10 years ago, and I was canceled from the open source community. Because I tried a little too hard to get two people fighting on Twitter to talk to each other on a video call. And that escalated into me getting uninvited from keynoting a conference. And it was hugely traumatic for me. And when I donated a kidney to my dad in 2018 and finally had to go to a psychologist for the first time in my life, he was like, yeah, we're going to put down PTSD.
Why are you here?
I know.
What are you doing?
I know.
On the flip side, those kind of stories, that kind of
great television, right? Yeah.
That's what people want to hear. I do think it's a good idea to establish some characters. I think it'll make your life easier, because just having somebody to talk to as opposed to always talking to the camera, give it a different energy.
I want to make a narrative show. Hero, goal, obstacle, stakes. The show is not a story. The show is a story engine.
Right. It has to be watchable and fun to watch, even if you don't know what open source is. How close can you get to you having your own fictional software project that is also dependent on this project? My red button app is going to fail. Do you promise a community, like the Scott's Tots episode of The Office, do you promise a community that there will be X million by this time? And then can you deliver on that promise? To do a Nathan for You approach on, so the companies owe you $100 million. You're collecting on it. You're identifying a company and you're like, they owe me $4 million. And you're like, how can I get it? And you talk to a lawyer. And the lawyer's like, you can't. Swing it around so that there is a horse named like Open Horse Sustainability.
Open Horse.
Open Source. No, Open Horse.
Are there any horses named Sustainability?
Welcome to Syntax.
All right, so I'm sitting in my car in the cemetery.
Today we have a great one. We have the latest member of the Syntax team, Chad Whitacre, on the show here to talk all about open source.
Hey gang, my father's buried over there, my friend Ed's buried over there. Got a lot of stories about this place, I've been here a lot.
An open source expert of sorts, and he is going to really fill us in about...
I'm freaking out. I don't know what I'm doing.
What licenses you should use, why are people so mad on the internet about open source sometimes? You know, just in general about the topic.
It's too much, man. It's too much. Fries, circuits.
So Chad, first of all, welcome to the Syntax team and welcome to Syntax.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Wes. I'm happy to be on the team and excited to join you guys for this episode.
I can't imagine I'm going to use this. I can't imagine.
A plug is like
my own thing.
Shameless,
I gotta show my own thing. Well, then that, I mean, the obviously compliments like, go watch my show on Syntax that's coming out together with this episode. That's an easy one.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, Chad's gonna be talking about open source and giving us all some some really interesting open source information in various ways. So we're really stoked to have Chad jump on the team.
I can't use this. I can't use this. Syntax makes podcasts. They're not Netflix or HBO. I'm not a writer. I'm not a content creator. I don't want to act. I want to be myself. But I don't want to share too much of myself. I don't want to use other people for comedy or drama. I want to build something together.
Open source has been this sort of mantra and this dogma for a long time, and it has great reasons for being, and it has great outcomes in lots of cases, but there's situations in which it doesn't work.
Do I really think companies are going to pay maintainers? How the heck is this gift economy supposed to even work? Am I expecting more from open source than it can deliver?
I believe more than anything, for all the other things that open source can be and do, the thing that matters about it is the impact it has on individual people's lives and the ability to change them in ways that are really dramatic because it doesn't hoard resources.
What if open source is a scam? Idealistic, middle-class 20-year-olds looking for meaning and purpose think they found it writing code for the community? By the time we burn them out, there's a fresh crop to keep the system going?
My conception of what the community is bigger than most people's. So it involves companies and venture capitalists and people who use the software and people who develop the software and people who contribute and people who think about it. Like, all those people are in the community. They all want different things, right? And what makes us a community is that we figure out how to work together to achieve our goals together.
I really do love people. I really do love working together and sharing freely.
There's something really humane, something really fulfilling about meeting people online that might be on the other side of the world, but you can connect, you can collaborate. I think there's something really human about that experience, about just working with other people.
Open source has economic implications. Open source has political implications.
I really do think open source is a gift that's greater than we realize. And that fully accepting it would heal a lot of the hurt in the world.
That's the fun of open source, right? Like, that's really what it's all about, is like people working together, collaborating, building stuff, getting way further than we could on our own.
Have you ever heard of something called open source software?
Not till.
Have you ever heard of software?
Yes.
What kind of phone do you have?
iPhone.
If I can be okay, perfect. You have an iPhone and you have an Android. You got one of each. I want you to go into settings.
Oh, settings.
I don't know when the last time you were in settings was.
Years.
Years?
I don't go there.
Search, like scroll up to the top and search for legal. You don't have any results for legal under settings? Interesting.
My phone is older, so interesting.
I don't know what's going on with your phone. So these are all the libraries that Google's using for Android. The way you got to think about the software on your phone, it's like Legos. Okay? So it's made up of like little components or
Okay.
libraries. And each one of those libraries, you have to have a license to use it. Does that make sense? Okay.
All Legos.
All Legos. There's two kinds of licenses, Shai. You ready?
Yeah.
Proprietary
Uh-huh.
is where you have to pay. There's another kind of license called open source. It's also called free software, where you just give the software to people and then they can use it. Does that sound weird? Okay.
Am I just giving my information out without
That's
getting-
another one. That's a whole nother story, but yeah.
Beerware license, revision 42.
Get it? 42?
Like, the answer to everything?
The beer
Beerware.
license.
What do you think about that? You ever hear the beerware license?
No.
Did you know that there are software components on your phone that Apple is using under the beerware license?
What is that?
Yeah, so you got to read it. So PHK blah 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 wrote this file.
As long as you retain this notice, you can do whatever you want with this stuff.
If we meet someday and you think this stuff is worth it, you can buy me a beer in return.
You can buy me a beer in return?
Would you buy this guy a beer if he were here right now?
What? Who is this man?
Well, he's in your phone.
Not
yeah,
mine.
that's true.
My
Fair
phone doesn't
point.
have him in
Fair-
there.
What do you think? If he was here right now, would you buy him a beer?
No.
No,
I
you
don't
wouldn't.
know.
You don't know.
I don't know him.
He's on your phone.
He's on my phone. phone?
Yeah,
You know how
you're
much
using
this phone
his
is?
stuff.
You know how much
What?
this phone is. He can't buy me a beer.
He's buying you a beer? Is that what you said?
I
Oh,
invested in this
I see what you're saying.
You see?
Okay, but
That's
here's
why.
a question.
Yes.
Who'd you pay for this phone? Apple, eventually, right?
True.
Okay, so do you think Apple ever bought this guy a beer?
Oh, you're right. You know what? If he's a nice guy, I will buy him a beer.
You would buy him a beer?
I will buy him
Okay,
a beer.
would you buy him a beer if you were here right now?
Hell yeah.
Probably.
Probably
Yeah,
would.
I'd
But you'd
buy
buy
most
anybody a
anybody
beer. Do you think Apple should buy him a beer?
Yes. He seems important.
Do you think Apple ever has?
No.
Why not?
They probably haven't met the guy.
Apple? No.
No?
Somebody at Apple? Probably.
Did you buy George's beer right there?
Not that one. If it were somebody I didn't care for, I would rather buy them the beer. That
Really?
Way, yeah, that way they owe me a beer. And I'm like moral high ground.
After all these years, I can't seem to shake the intuition that open source is a gift that's greater than we realize. That it has untapped potential to heal the world, to reconcile individuals and institutions. Talking to folks at Fermata gave me hope that this vision at least starts to resonate with people. At this point, I have more scars than answers, but I also have a lot of good questions for us to pursue together. Can we create a new economic reality by growing the pledge to 100 million ARR? Will Apple ever join? Will they ever buy PHK a beer? Can we accept the gift of open source? Can we unlock its potential to heal the world? The gift of open source can heal the world. My name is Chad Whitacre, head of open source at Sentry. Join me on the open path.
I think of time as a river.